Thank you to BetterHelp for sponsoring this episode. Listen, you've heard my hashtag different, better, more. What will you do differently, better, or more of in 2023? Some of you have already committed to healing from grief by working with me and my non clinical approach to grief recovery and support. But for those of you who want to round out your healing with a clinical approach, there's BetterHelp and their network of over 25,000 licensed therapists. BetterHelp is the world's largest therapy service and it's 100% online. To get started, you just answer a few questions about your needs and preferences in therapy. That way, BetterHelp can match you with the right therapist from their network. Then you talk to your therapist however you feel comfortable, whether that's by text, by chat, phone, or even video. You can message your therapist at any time and schedule live sessions when it's convenient for you. If your therapist isn't the right fit for any reason, you can switch to a new therapist at no additional charge. With BetterHelp, you get the same professionalism and quality you expect from in-office therapy, but with a therapist who is custom picked for you, with more scheduling flexibility and at a much more affordable price. Use this link to get 10% off your first month. BetterHelp.com/C-words. That's better, HELP.com/C-words. Listen, grief doesn't have to be grim. That's why when I talk about it on this podcast, it's about dealing with grief and loss in a way that influences the changes you want to make in your life. As you heal, what do you want to do next? Make a professional pivot, end a toxic relationship or friendship? I want you to have the confidence to navigate change. These are real stories from my one-on-one coaching sessions and my inspiring interviews with change makers. I'm Marceia Cork, the change coach, and this is Ooh, those effing C-words. The content and conversations with me on this podcast are for informational and educational purposes only. They're not intended to be a substitute for legal, medical, or clinical advice or treatment. Always seek the advice of a licensed or qualified professional. MCs, hello, and welcome to another episode of Ooh, those Effin' C-words. At the time of this recording, it's the eve of the anniversary of the death of the patriarch of my family. This was my Uncle Stanley. He's the oldest of 12 children and so looked up to by his siblings, nieces and nephews, his community, neighborhood. In fact, he was a man so well revered in our family and in his community that I'd written for his obituary, if we stand a bit taller, walk a bit stronger, and live a life richer, it's because of Stan. Stan the man, the gold standard. So we've all reacted and, grieved his death in different ways, but it goes without saying that his wife, my Aunt Annette, has experienced this in a way that none of us can imagine. And so the reason she wanted to share her story publicly is that she sees the value of the grief exercises and the potential in helping the rest of our family heal as well. So, MCs, I want to welcome my aunt, Annette, to the show.
Hi, Marceia. Thank you for
Thank you
having
for
me.
being here. Yeah. So, Annette, I don't want to speak for you. I know I gave a bit of that background, but I don't want to speak for you. So,
Mhm.
you tell the people, tell the listeners why you wanted to share this session publicly for the podcast.
Well, I know that people grieve in different ways. And people say it gets better as time goes on. And I'm sorry, I'm emotional just by hearing Marcia introduce my husband's family.
Yeah.
So I would like to just share how it's affecting me.
So, this is going to resemble what you've heard about Lakia's story. I mentioned episodes 40 and 41. Lakia was on the show. So I am able to at least refer you to that conversation so you're aware of the discomfort sometimes that can come with walking through your life events and me being silent to allow you to walk through it. So I want you to know, you might to expect that today. You did mention one of the things that I want to point out, and that was that Lakia walked through all of her life events over the course of her life.
Yes.
And exercise one is actually designed that way. That
Oh,
is what I
okay.
want you all to do. So I wanted to share that with you today because you've done the workbook already. You've done the exercises, and so that's why this
Mhm.
is going to take a bit of a different shape because you've already done it. But it's also good for me to be able to walk you through it. It's more like, more like a debriefing of your activity one so that you know how to use this optimally moving forward. So
Yes.
adding it to, your toolkit for grief recovery whenever you experience any event, any memory, is something that triggers a thought or memory to how you can use this, how you can go back and do exercise one at any time,
Okay.
any of the exercises
Hmm.
for any time. Okay.
Okay. And I would like to go back to um, how close my mother and I were.
Hmm.
Like I said, there's six of us, but my younger sister, myself, and my mother, we were so close. We did everything together. The others were out of the household. So when they were out of the household, we did everything together. Uh, my sister married, she moved to Maryland. And then when my father died in 82, my mother moved to Maryland. So you can imagine the two best friends on that had a devastating effect on me. So I always prayed to God that one day we would be together. And he did answer my prayers because my mother ended up moving to Delaware right on the block that I live on. And my sister, and we're close to my sister in Maryland, and she comes to visit often. So now, going to go back a little with Stanley. We met in high school. So I've known Stanley for 50 or 51 years. We were married for 48 years and 5 months. And like I said, it's just I don't have children, grandchildren, so they all are so important in my life. He was he could do anything. If he can fix anything, and he just was so perfect in doing everything. He was the healthy one between the two of us. I had heart condition and autoimmune disease. So I've always told Stanley, if I die, make sure you call Social Security. And I just made sure he knew uh, every place that he needed to contact to get my money. So that was the joke. I was always dying before him. And not just that, because of my family history on my father's side. The women on my father's side died in their 60s, and they had some of the same diseases that I have. So Stanley was always very healthy. He helped everyone, my family, his family. Everybody came to him if they, especially about cars, wanted to know anything about cars, but how to fix anything. Stanley did it. So of course I depended on him for everything, other than, and I did everything in the household as far as fixing dinners and stuff. So when he got sick in February of 2022. He just said, "Oh, I can't move my bowels." So at first, he just got some things that help you to do that, and things got worse. Then he started complaining about a pain under on his right side under his chest. We did go to immediate care, and they just suggested some things to help him move his bowels because they thought maybe the buildup was making whatever organ that was, it was pushing against or something. So after a while, I said, no, Stan. And then I know when it was, when he couldn't eat. Stanley loved to eat. When he could not eat his dinner, I knew, let me take this man to the emergency room and find out what's going on. So we did go to the emergency room, and you have these portals now. After they take a test, they tested Stanley, and it came back that he had cancer. And I looked it up on my iPad and all. I got the results back before the doctor came in to tell us what the results were. I didn't tell Stanley because I was on my iPad. He was resting on the bed, and it said he had stage 4. I didn't know what to do, so the doctor came in and spoke to him. We came home and we saw some specialist, cancer specialist in Delaware, and she talked to us and said, do you know how sick your husband is? Well, how sick you are. And she gave him like 3 to 4 months to live. But I always said, well, it's in God's hands. Maybe with the treatment, he could live longer, because you always hear these cases where people live for years. He died 19 days after his diagnosis. It was a shock to me, a shock to the family, the shock to neighbors, a shock to everyone. I'm happy that he was home his last few days with his family, his sisters that were here with me. He was able to see his niece, his favorite niece, Marceia. She came to visit him in the hospital, and I was glad of that. It just meant so much to me. I can't believe he's not here. Sitting at home, didn't even want to fix dinner for myself because we ate together at the table. Now I eat at the counter by myself. When we moved here to Delaware, we did everything together. Especially after my mother died, and he went grocery shopping with me. And so we really did everything together for the last 10 years we were here. So not having him here is very hard. Very hard. I don't know if it gets better or not. I do all my activities during the day that I've always done, even when he was alive. And I still play pickleball and then go water volleyball. And so I just question, what do I do now? I've been traveling with my siblings. Well, that is well and good, but still, when you come home, he's not here. When I come home with my activities, he's not here. I can't even talk about him without crying. I kept his car because he had the newest car. I can't even drive the car long distances without crying. I do have one happy moment for his 70th birthday. He really had a great time that day. He loved that his cousins came, and one cousin that very rarely leaves Virginia also showed up. So he was so happy about that he came there for his 70th birthday. And when we were leaving, Stanley said, well, at least I made it to 70. And I said, well, why do you say that? I hope you make it to 80 when we have another big, birthday. But I know why he said that, because several of his siblings has passed before him, and they were younger. So I know that's why he said that. But we all were hoping that he would make it to 80, past his father's age, but he did not. And of course, I questioned why him. I questioned, okay, but God, what do you want me to do now? What is my purpose now in life? I tried to do, started going out to the community and doing things with the community, helping people. That's something I do like to do. So I got involved with the Cornerstone Community Center, and I helped out when I could. I hope you got some background of, why I feel the way I do about Stanley.
So thank you for sharing that. I know it's difficult. You got through it. And this is actually what comes out of doing the exercise in person. You do the exercise on your own when you have the workbook, but um, it's an extra release to be able to share this with someone. And that's what you were able to experience now, having done what you did in the exercise now with me.
And I would like to say it's hard to share it with my siblings. They don't, when I start talking about Stanley, they don't really want to talk about him. I guess because we were end up crying.
Yeah.
Thank God I have Stanley's sister who's a year apart from him, Annette, we talk a lot. We talk about Stanley a lot. We cry on the phone together. But I think it's a help for both of us.
Yeah.
But she's, of course, very close to him, too.
It's incredibly healthy. And I know you've heard me talk about this outside of doing a session like this, just, talking to family. Um, it's helpful to do exercises like this and have a community. Some people, it doesn't have to be a large group, it can be one or two people, but someone that you're allowed to be emotionally expressive with.
Yes.
And I
I'm glad
love
to have.
that you found that in,
Mhm,
you know, my mother. Well,
mhm.
you said his sisters, my mother, my aunt, because otherwise you are wearing a mask. You are pretending for other people that you're okay so that they feel more comfortable that
Yes.
you're okay.
Yes. It's funny when I go out, when I'm going out, some people would say, "Oh, you're so strong."
Mhm.
Well, I'm not supposed to go around crying all the time. I go out and do my activities and talk with them and laugh and all, but I'm not
Yeah.
strong at all. They don't know what I go through at home.
Yeah. And these are some of the myths. We've
Mhm.
talked about some of the myths to coping and healing, and people expecting you to grieve alone, like it's a private thing, like you're
Mhm.
allowed to have these breakdowns, but no one should see them.
Right.
And it's just not true, because what
Yes.
that teaches people is that they can't be themselves around you, that they can't
Right.
really share, wear their emotions on their sleeves and show you the extent of how this has affected them.
Mhm.
While we, can talk briefly about some of the other stirs, some of the things that I heard you mention were how active you are. Now, what I've always known about you is that you are pretty active. Do you
Yes.
feel like you've become more active um, since his death to, kind of be a distraction, or would you say that it's still about the same level of activity that you had before?
It's about the same level of activity. I have gone away more with my sisters.
Hmm.
I didn't go away all the time with my sisters because I never wanted to leave Stanley but so long.
Mm.
Some of their trips were 2 weeks. I've gone away when we were married, maybe a week, left him for a week, but I never left him for 2 weeks or
Hmm.
more. So now I can go away with my sisters as long as I like.
Okay. But then you said you come home and the grief hits you again because now you're back to, your everyday, and trying to establish what everyday looks like now
Right,
independently.
right. Uh, we looked at basketball, football together in the evenings. We just like to have eat dinner and enjoy TV time together.
Mhm.
Looked at a lot of his shows. Yeah, I can't even look at basketball now. Look at the Warriors. That was his team
Mm.
for basketball. Football, he so with football.
Mhm.
There was only one other activity I did include because Stan and I used to play shoot billiards in the
Okay.
game room here,
Mhm.
and every Sunday, not every Sunday, but on Sundays at 3 p.m. Because
Okay.
we knew hardly no one was in there. We had three pool tables in the game room.
Mhm.
So now I asked a couple of ladies, "Do you want to learn how to play pool?" So I have a good 6 women, and we play every
Okay.
Sunday at 2:30 because from 3 to 5 they like to go home at 5. Some of them fix dinner for their husbands and all. So
Mhm.
we had to
Mhm.
change it to 2:30, so we had time. to finish our games.
Mhm.
So that's one thing I did add it, but I only added it because that was something Stan and I used to do anyway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. What about tennis and pickleball? Have you I know you watch tennis still. Have you gone back
Yeah.
to playing pickleball or
Oh, I never
being
stopped.
associated? Okay.
Never stopped. That's why I mean, as soon as we went through the funeral and all, I came back and did everything. And this is why people are saying you're so strong. But
Mm.
I didn't see why I should be staying home during the day and the evening and just crying all day. So
Mhm.
I didn't stop doing my regular activities. I went right back right away.
Okay. And so the reason why I ask this is because I've told you about this acronym STERB,
Hmm.
STERB, short term energy relieving behaviors.
Hmm.
So, short term, meaning it's activities, distractions, things that you do because you have this energy,
Hmm.
this energy, surrounding the loss, this energy surrounding the grief that you don't know what to do with. And
Hmm.
so, for people who start to cope in unhealthy ways, they lean toward these distractions, these short-term distractions. So for
Right.
some people it's substance abuse and alcohol,
Hmm.
but for others it's they dive into their work or they
Right.
start taking on a lot of new projects and activities. For
Hmm.
some people it's a lot of exercise, it's
Right.
shopping, it can take on many different shapes.
Right.
So there are I don't want people to confuse um, getting back to their activities as engaging in these STIRBs, these short-term energy relieving behaviors. But I also want people to be aware of when it might be a STIRB, when it
Hmm.
might be that you're overindulging in something as a way of um, not dealing,
Right.
of,
Right.
of avoidance and things
Right.
like that. So that's why I ask, just
Yeah.
the level of activity. Do you feel like it mirrored life prior to this loss, or do you feel like there's been an abundance or overindulgence in any activities?
No, it mirrors what it was before. I
Okay.
still like coming home and
Hmm.
relaxing in the evenings.
Okay.
Because we have a lot of card games that goes on in the evening, and then if someone said, "Well, why don't you go to the card games?" No, I
Hmm.
like being home. Even though
Gotcha.
Stanley's not here, I still like being home, relaxing in the evening, and so I still do that. I don't like going out in the evening too much.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
I like being home. So any activities I do, they are normal activities, and they're during the
Hmm.
day. Like I said, I only added billiards because that's something Stan and I used to do.
Okay. And how do you feel about that? How do you feel about being able to enjoy this activity that you probably thought you wouldn't be able to enjoy without him?
Oh, billiards?
Hmm.
I think he would be proud that I was able to teach others, other women, and continue doing it. Yeah, I think he would be. Mm.
I love that, and I love that for you because
Mhm.
it's one of the things that grievers struggle with is
Yes.
I use this phrasing, being okay with being okay,
Mhm.
and that's not meaning that you're okay with this. You're okay with
No,
the
of
loss.
course not.
I've gotten over it. That's not what I'm
Yeah,
implying.
right.
But there are times when grievers feel guilty about feeling okay.
I
So
can
being able
understand
to,
that.
yeah.
Yes.
So being
Yes, I
able
can
to enjoy
understand that.
that activity.
Mhm.
Being able to I think it's why you struggle with the word strong, because this isn't the first time that you've mentioned that to me, that it's difficult for you to hear people say you're so strong.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's
Yes,
a
it
that's
is difficult. Yeah, I because I don't
Mhm,
think I'm strong at all, really,
mhm.
but because I just don't see the other side of me when I'm home.
Yeah.
Or when I'm by myself shopping, or even when I was in church. I was just telling my sister this past Sunday, they all, both my mother and Stan went to church with me,
Mhm.
and it just standing there singing a song, some songs that I know that they like, and it just I've always had tears uh, swelling up in my eyes
Yeah.
when I think about both of them. And like I said, I can't even talk. And well, one thing I do regret, it was hard for me to talk to Stanley when he was sick.
Mm.
He never liked to see me cry. So of course, as I was talking to him and my voice is sounding like it is probably now, I would
Mhm.
just talk, say a little something and go out the room and cry on my own.
Okay.
Uh, One thing when the last time before he was unconscious, he was in the hospital. I was there with him. They gave him some, oh, what is that drug? Well, he was in pain. So they gave him something for the pain. And they were going to send him home on hospice. He had to get oxygen at home now.
Mhm.
So I stayed in the hospital as long as I could with him at 4 o'clock because the oxygen was coming between 5 and 6. So I went home and they said, oh, they were going to bring him home. So he was awake at that time when I left him at the hospital. When they brought him home, he was, I guess, unconscious. He just never woke up since that time. Of course, I thought I was going to see him again and be able to talk with him again.
Yeah.
A couple of his brothers didn't see him before that time, but luckily he did do a Zoom call before that, and so most of the family
Mhm.
was able to say a little bit to the family because he was out of breath a lot.
Mhm.
So that's what I regret. I mean, I wish I would have stayed in the hospital with it because I said to the person who brought him in, I said, well, what happened to him? What did you do to him? Did you give him more drugs or something? Why isn't he awake? That was hard because I
Yeah.
didn't expect him not to be awake when he came home.
Yeah.
I expected to be able to talk with him. I was not able to do that. That was hard.
Yeah. So one of the activities you haven't done is the release letter. And so that's what the rest of this conversation will be like, to prepare you for the grief letter
Okay.
and you reading the grief letter to me next week.
Okay.
So I've heard um, what feels like guilt since we've
Hmm.
been talking today. I've heard what regrets you have.
Okay.
Okay. And so the background on that is um, being able to live the rest of your life without guilt is a good part of getting to this point of feeling um, at least e- at least emotionally complete,
Hmm.
meaning you've communicated to him all that you feel like you need to communicate right now. And I say right now because I don't want you to think that this is a one and done, that you'll write
Hmm.
this letter and you never have to revisit it. It's the start of the letter. The letter,
Okay.
just like we write any letter, can have a lot of PSs or multiple letters. And that's where my framework is a little different from what I'm certified in, is because they'll call it a completion letter and it
Hmm.
ends with a goodbye. And it feels more final than most people want it to feel. So I call it a release letter because it is at least you working in the moment of dealing with whatever this memory, this flashback, what it is that you're experiencing. You're working through it now. Like why I call this a toolkit or one of the things in your toolkit.
Hmm.
And so that's what I want you to work through now. Think it through, and you can think it through with me. Some of the things that you identify as guilt.
Well, with my mother, I feel she died of COVID from a caregiver. Very good caregiver. She was very good with my mother, but she wasn't honest. She told us that when she was sick, she had sinus problems. I did believe her because before COVID, I know she was dealing with sinus problems.
Hmm.
But she never told us that her two daughters had COVID, one in December,
Mhm.
one in January, that she was exposed to people who had COVID.
Mm.
If I would have known that, I would have asked her to take a COVID test before she came back to my mother's home.
Okay.
I just trusted her and I believed her when she said it's not COVID, it was her sinuses. It was COVID. My mother had COVID. She was in the hospital at the same time on the same floor with my mother.
Mm. Mm.
She, the last day we visited our mother, we saw her getting in the car. She walked out of the hospital that day. That evening, my mother passed away.
Mm.
So I really feel guilty that I didn't, I don't know. I trust people too much, I guess. I need to stop doing that. You know, whatever people say to me, I think it's the truth. And obviously, we
Mm.
know it's not. Um, so feel a little guilty about that. I should have asked her to take a test. She was getting, because she stayed with my mother from 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. So you can imagine the
Mhm.
money she was getting per week. So it's
Yeah.
all about the money. She didn't know. She said,
Mm.
because she came to pick up her last check. That was before my mother passed away, before she even went in the hospital. But she came to pick up her check and she said, "Oh, I tried my best. I tried my best to protect myself. I always wore my mask." So then, because I didn't know who gave my mother COVID,
Ah.
we did have a couple other people who came in, but they never were face to face with her, like her
Mhm.
caregiver, of course.
Yeah.
So I didn't blame her at first. I didn't, but then with that outcry, and then I found out through her daughter that they had COVID, and so I
Mm.
pretty much knew it was her. And then she ended up in the hospital with my mother the same time, so
Yeah.
I knew it was her that gave her COVID. So that's the regret I have with her. And with Stanley, I don't have a lot of regret. Just if we could have gotten him to the hospital earlier, maybe he would have gotten some treatment before he went down so quickly. That's the only thing. I think I did all I can do with
Mhm.
Stanley because he wasn't even ready to go to the emergency room when I
Mm.
suggested it to him. He said,
Okay.
"Do we have to do that? You know, you stay there all day." I said, "Yes, we should do that because we don't know what's wrong with you. At least this way we would find out what's wrong with you." So I
Yeah.
did convince him. He was pretty good that way. I did convince him to go. I just wish I could have thought about just taking him right away because he wasn't a person who complained unless he was really sick.
Okay.
You know how some men they say that some women say, "Oh, their husbands are babies and little things." Stanley was
Mhm.
not like that.
Mhm.
So I know if he starts talking and complaining about something, it's really bothering him.
Yeah.
And so I just think I did all I can do at that time. Of course, I wish I could have done a couple of things differently, but I think I feel so with my mother. I guess I feel more regret than with Stanley because I think I did all I can do at that time.
Yeah. And that's what's important to your healing
Hmm.
is feeling like you've done all that you can do, or at least
Hmm.
expressing what you didn't get a chance to express.
Hmm.
And
Yes.
so that part of this exercise, the acronym that I use is GRIE. And I'm adding the F because the F is the forgiveness for either you or for
Mhm.
yourself. But it's starting with what feels like guilt, translating that into regrets because that is actually what you're feeling is
Yes.
regret
Yes.
for not having done something a certain way, or for other people not doing or behaving in a way that you expected them to or want them to, because it takes a different shape for different events.
Mhm.
So that's the G and the R. You're creating new impressions by reliving these experiences as you do this exercise. So you're creating new impressions on the mind, of
Mhm.
how this event went, and then expression. So you're using the impressions to generate the expressions that you still need to share so that you feel a sense of release.
Okay.
And so those expressions are statements of apologies or forgiveness. And every statement doesn't have to be, I
Right.
apologize for,
Yeah.
it won't take that type of shape.
Yeah.
But it is just communicating anything that you feel like you wanted to communicate and didn't get an opportunity to. So I've heard you mention him not being responsive when he got home and
Mhm.
you wishing that he had been because there were still conversations you wish you could have had.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
although in some of those moments you probably communicated to him, you didn't communicate in the way that you wanted to.
Right.
Yeah. You knew you couldn't get a response. And you communicated with him gingerly because you continued to wear that mask
Mhm.
of not wanting to have difficult conversations or um, say the things that you needed to get off your chest. And so the
Right.
release letter is the opportunity for you to do that.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. So I do
Well,
still want you to do the release letter.
okay. One thing I do, I'm glad I had him home for those
Yeah.
few times, especially so his family could come visit him, even though he wasn't responsive. But they came and talked with him and his aunt Billy, and so that was a good thing to have him home, not in the hospital,
Hmm.
because then you can't just come any old time at the hospital.
Right.
And I was glad. I slept next to him that evening when the nurse said most likely he will pass at overnight, and I felt comfortable
Hmm.
being next to him. And when I woke up 4 o'clock in the morning, and then I checked on him, and he was gone. But I was just glad that he was home those few days, and like I said, everybody got to see him,
Yeah.
and I was with him to the end.
Which is why you have fewer regrets
Hmm.
there in that
Hmm.
relationship, in that event, than you have with your mother, because you do
Right.
still feel like you carry some guilt and regrets there.
Yes.
But with
Yes.
Stanley, you feel like you did everything you possibly could.
Yes, I do. Mm.
Yeah, so I want you to do those exercises.
Okay.
And with them, as I mentioned before, it doesn't have to be um, just this one letter. You can go back to it, you can revisit it.
Hmm.
Why I suggested having this conversation, prior to tomorrow, because tomorrow is the anniversary of Stan's death, and you were struggling with what to do, how to acknowledge that day, to deal with the feelings. But I wouldn't be surprised if what you feel tomorrow, you've been feeling for the days and weeks leading up to the
Oh
anniversary
yes.
of death.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
But one thing I'm eating more now. Even I was surprised. I haven't really been fixing myself dinner. It's
Okay.
no fun fixing dinner just for yourself. Especially all these years I've been always fixing dinner for someone.
Yeah.
So lately I have been eating more and getting myself into my bed instead of sleeping on my couch. And the
Mhm.
only reason why I end up sleeping on my couch is because Stanley used to wake me up and say, "Okay, it's time to go to bed," because I'm already falling
Ah.
asleep. When I think I'm looking at the news, so I have no one there to wake me up. Sometimes I don't wake up to 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. So what's the sense of
Mm.
going to bed? I just take my blanket and stay on the couch and go to sleep.
Mhm.
But I'm doing better in that respect. Also now, I'm eating more, doing my dishes, getting ready for bed, and going into my bed.
Yeah.
So I was really surprised that I'm doing a little better with that.
How would you feel about including some of the things that you shared earlier in this conversation, including them in your release letter? Things like um, what life looks like now for you. So the activities or lack thereof, because it'll vary from one to the next. But coming home to that silence,
Yeah.
communicating that. Is there any anger or disappointment that you want to communicate? And maybe that isn't um, directed at him, but it can be shared with him.
Hmm. Okay. Hmm.
You can also include in your letter forgiveness for yourself meaning I won't carry any guilt about where I am strong, because I think we're struggling with one definition or narrative of what strong means.
Right.
And for you, it sounds like you feel like strong means I'm over this,
Right.
that I'm fine, that
Mm-hmm.
I don't cry, that I don't have breakdowns.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the context that people are using it in is more of, I might be a hermit, or you know what I mean? I might not
Yes.
deal with this as well. I might not be able to leave the house.
Well, that's true because some people don't. Yes.
Yeah. I might
Yes.
not be able to talk about my loved one without breaking down. I might
Mm-hmm.
not be able to hear his or her name, those
Mm-hmm.
types of things. So I think they're putting
Okay.
themselves in the situation and thinking about how they would respond, and then just amazed at what you are capable of doing.
Right. Because I know I had a meeting, and everyone was shocked I was at the meeting. I said, "Well, I just didn't feel staying home was the thing for me.
Mhm.
If I had a meeting, I'm going to the meeting." And it was soon after Stanley's death. But you remember, people used to wear black for X amount of, I don't know, time. I don't remember how long.
Yeah.
And I said, "Oh my goodness, I don't have that many other than black pants." I said, Am I supposed to stay home for a certain amount of time or
Mhm.
walk around wearing black for a certain amount of time?" So I just
Mhm.
did what was comfortable for me to do. And
Yeah.
I went to the meeting, and of course, everybody was hugging me. I said, "Damn, maybe I shouldn't have gone to this meeting," because they were making me feel bad.
Yeah.
I was just trying to go on with my life.
Mhm. So, how would you feel, because this is where, from my observation, the mask goes back on. So you said you respond, and I don't know if this is outwardly or if you say it to yourself, that you don't like that word, and because you don't feel like you're strong. But are you comfortable communicating to these people, these are the people in particular who say that in your presence, that you're strong? Are you comfortable sharing these moments where you do break down and you do cry, and
I
what
do
trans
tell them that. I tell everyone that it's not easy at all.
Okay.
And I told them that it's not easy. I don't even want to go home sometimes, to an empty home. And that's when someone shared, "Well, there's a lot of card games out there you can go to." I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to do that. I want to be home and be comfortable in my home because that's what I like to do in the evening.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yes, I do share it to them because they always ask me, "How am I doing?" And I said, "Well, doing the best that I can."
Mhm.
But I tell them how hard it is.
Okay.
Because everyone that I know here have been married for some longer than Stan and I,
Mhm.
or around the same time. So I just say to them, imagine that one of you are not here any longer.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing ever.
Yeah.
But
So
I
I
do. I also tell women little things that you need to see what your husband does around in the house, because you can't call somebody for every little thing that needs to be done. And I'm sorry I didn't really see some of the, like, changing the vents, but
mm,
Stanley was great. He has so many notes in that garage of how to do. He even had um, the car washes that he likes the best. He
yeah.
rated them 1, 2, and 3. I said, "Okay, I'm always going to go to the 1." you know, um, how often he changed? Well, the vents. That was every 3 months.
Mhm.
He wrote everything down when he got his oil changes.
Yeah.
So as I'm in the garage, I see other little notes. He just had so many notes, and I thank him all the time. I said, "Oh, thank you, Stan."
Yeah.
But there's things that I've ordered, and would always put them together. I have something out there that I've ordered like 3 months now. I didn't even open it because I don't like reading directions and putting things together.
Mhm.
Stan always did that, so it's
Okay.
still out there in the box.
Okay.
So I do miss that too.
Have you decided what you want to do tomorrow?
I know his brothers don't like showing their emotions.
Mm.
So I don't know. I know if I did something tomorrow, I would break down, probably like I'm doing now. I have crying and talking. So right now, I think I just won't do anything and just be at peace with Stan and I.
How do you feel about journaling or doing this release letter as
That's a
an
good thing to
exercise
do
tomorrow?
tomorrow. Yes,
Mhm.
that's a good thing for me to do tomorrow.
Okay.
Hmm. Start on it anyway. Hmm.
And how do you feel about meditation?
I don't meditate, so I can't tell you how I feel about it.
What if I call it visualization and it include, meditation techniques?
Okay. If you, well, one thing I do I have I call my prayer room upstairs.
Okay.
And I don't know if you call it meditation, but I do sit in my chair. Of course, I read my Bible and all.
Mhm.
That is a place that I just sit and think.
Okay,
Yeah,
that's perfect.
yeah.
So the visualization is more of a word that I want to start using more to help people with the impressions, to help people with this exercise, the activity one, going back and looking at all of the life events that you've experienced and
Hmm.
um, aligning, reliving so that you can identify the emotions that you felt, the way that you reacted, the way that you grieved, and then the extent of the impact, both positive and negative.
Hmm.
If it's done in a way that resembles just, for some people meditation, but for others it's visualization, just actually playing that back in
Hmm.
your head.
Okay.
Because some people struggle with identifying the positive um, outcomes, side events, byproducts that happened as part of that event when it's something traumatic.
Yeah.
They're
Okay.
like, this was the most horrific thing I've experienced. How can I identify something positive? And so in those examples, the positive is being able to, the first day that you went back to work, or the first day that you went back to school, or the
Hmm.
first time that you were honest with someone about, sharing this story, something like
Hmm.
that.
Hmm.
And that moment of feeling strength or empowered, or that it was a sunny day and you actually looked up and acknowledged that it was a beautiful sunny day.
Hmm.
Those are the positives. They can be very small positives, but what else did you see, feel, and experience that you can attribute in a positive way and then attach a number to that? So it could be
Okay.
that positive could be a three. Like it wasn't life changing, but it felt good in that moment.
Hmm.
So I
Yeah.
think I can, try to be more descriptive with the types of positives when I include some type of visualization, like as you play back that experience, but then think about, the hours before, the hours after, the days before, the days after,
Hmm.
and any other positives that were alongside that. Like
Okay.
one example that comes to mind that was shared with me was that her father got her ice cream, and
Mm.
she had so many negative memories attached to his their relationship, that he
Hmm.
wasn't there for her emotionally, that she felt like all of her life had just been no real emotional connection. And then
Hmm.
she had this memory of getting ice cream. She's like, wow, he bought me ice
Hmm.
cream.
Uh-huh.
And then that triggered more, that there were
Right.
more exchanges like that
Right.
that she completely forgot
Forgotten.
about,
Yeah.
or
Hmm.
dismissed, or I don't wanna say diminished, but,
Hmm.
that's how it was.
Right.
And so that's what that visualization and creating these new impressions, that's what those new impressions are.
Hmm.
What are the side
Okay.
events, the side conversations? Did I meet my grandmother for the first time after this
Mm.
loss? Because my
Hmm.
grandmother came in town, those
Hmm.
types of things.
Hmm.
Those are the
Yes.
positives that
Yes.
you get out of this visualization and new impressions.
Mm.
So tomorrow, while you are thinking, reliving all of the moments of your life with Stanley, those are things that can go a that can be a part of now I journal. And
Okay.
journaling is what I do when I feel this energy that I need to release.
Mhm.
And this is why it becomes a toolkit exercise.
Mhm. Okay.
Okay. So I love that you already have a space dedicated for this,
Yes.
somewhere you
Yes.
can go. Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
That'll be good.
Okay.
Mm. One thing
So
my
do you,
mother did tell me, because her end days, I would go there 9 o'clock when the caregiver left, from
okay.
9 to 12, and other people would come in. She always wanted me, oh, stop taking care of me. I want you to live your life. I want you to live your life.
Mm.
But I was living my life. I just, she was just part of it.
Mm-hmm.
It was, she didn't see that she was just a big part of my life. She really, being with her made me happy.
Yeah.
But she didn't see that. Go on and live your life. And that's why I did ask her if she wanted to live here with Stanley and I before I had the house built. I would have
Mm-hmm.
had something different built for
Uh-huh.
her. Yeah. And she said no. But it worked out. We did have a house down the block. So we could buy a house down the block from where we live. So it
Yeah.
worked out. God was good. He did bless me with having her here
Yeah.
for her last 10 years. She was here too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so
Okay.
that's one of those positives
Oh, yeah.
that you can jot down.
Mhm.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, MCs. You may have noticed I left this episode uninterrupted. I didn't jump in with any theories or explanations this time because I wanted you to feel a full conversation in just raw form. So if you've been worrying about what it looks like to open up to someone, this is the worst of it, right? This is what grief recovery can look like. Just candid, vulnerable conversations. If you're a new listener, I hope you enjoyed the show and that you'll follow the show right now. I release a new episode every Monday. Until next week, MCs, thanks for listening. Bye-bye. Ooh, Those FNC Words is an independently produced podcast produced and edited by yours truly, Marceia Cork, and made possible with support from listeners like you. To support the podcast, go to anchor.fm/those FNC words /support, or click the link in the show description. If you've made a commitment to self-care in 2023, join my free #DifferentBetterMore challenge on Slack. Come for the accountability, stay for the community. Download the Slack app now and click the link in the show description to join.